Ladies and gentlemen, good day to you all. I want to talk to you about something that will transform your relationships, stabilize your emotions, and empower you to live above offense. How to never get angry or bothered with anyone. Let me begin with a truth that will challenge your mind. No one has the power to make you angry unless you give it to them. Anger is not a reaction, it's a decision. It's not what they said or did, it's how you chose to process it. You were not created to be ruled by emotions. You were designed to rule them. You have a mind not just for thinking, but for governing. When you get angry easily, you are telling the world you are not in control of yourself. You are under the control of someone else's words or actions. So the first principle is this: take back the power you've been giving away. Every time someone irritates you, pause and ask yourself, why am I giving them authority over my peace? The answer will humble you and empower you. Secondly, understand people. You cannot be disturbed by what you understand. When you understand that people often operate from their own wounds, their own ignorance, and their own fear, you no longer personalize their behavior. You begin to see that most offenses are not aimed at you. They're expressions of inner conflict in others. When someone cuts you off in traffic, disrespects you at work, or betrays your trust, pause, step back, and remember this: that's their issue, not yours. You are not the garbage bin for someone else's frustration. You are a steward of your soul. Anger is one of the most commonly accepted emotions in human experience. People speak of it casually, justify it freely, and act on it without pause. Yet few stop to ask a fundamental question: is anger automatic, or is it chosen? The answer to that question is the key to mastering yourself and living above offense. You must first understand this powerful truth. Anger is not something that happens to you. It's something you allow. It may not always feel that way. It can come suddenly, catching you off guard, like a spark in dry grass. But just because it comes quickly does not mean it comes without your permission. The moment someone says something offensive or acts in a way that you perceive as disrespectful, your mind begins to interpret that moment. And it is in that interpretation, not the event itself, that anger is born. This means anger is not mechanical. You are not a robot. You do not simply react. You in turn, you assign meaning. That is the space where power lies, between what happens and how you choose to respond. Now, many people confuse reaction with response. They say, he made me mad, or oh, she got under my skin. But that's not the truth. No one makes you mad. People can do things. People can say things. But the anger, that belongs to you. It comes from inside you. You are the one who decides to take offense. You are the one who allows the emotion to rise, to take over, to dominate your words, your thoughts, and your actions. In truth, when you say someone made you angry, what you're really saying is, I gave that person the keys to my emotional life. That's a dangerous way to live. Why? Because when your emotions are in the hands of others, you are never free. You become a slave to their words, a puppet of their behavior. Your joy, your peace, your mental clarity, all of it depends on how other people treat. And if we're honest, people are inconsistent. People are imperfect. People are unpredictable. If your inner world rises and falls with their moods and attitudes, then you will live in constant emotional instability. But there's another way. You can reclaim your power by choosing not to react, but to respond. A response requires thought. A response requires intention. A response is a decision made from strength, not from impulse. That is the difference between emotional maturity and emotional slavery. Think of it like this. If someone insults you, you have two choices. You can immediately get angry, raise your voice, and escalate the situation. That's reaction. Or you can pause, breathe, analyze what was said. Ask yourself, why does this matter? Why should this affect me? Is this worth my energy? That's response. One drains you. The other develops you. There is a proverb that says, a man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls. In ancient times, the strength of a city was its walls. If the walls were broken, anything could come in. Thieves, wild animals, enemies. That's what it's like when you don't govern your emotions. Anything and anyone can come in and mess with your people. But when you have control, when you've made the decision that you are in charge of how you feel, then even when people act foolishly, you remain wise. Even when people are disrespectful, you remain dignified. You become a fortress, strong, steady, and secure. Now, don't confuse what I'm saying. This is not about ignoring problems. This is not about being passive or letting people walk all over you. No, this is about choosing your response instead of letting someone provoke your reaction. It's the difference between power and weakness. Anger unmanaged is a sign of weakness. It says, I don't have control over myself. It says, I need others to behave perfectly so I can be okay. That is not strength. Strength is when you can remain calm in chaos. Strength is when you can be insulted without becoming insulting. Strength is when you decide, no matter how people act, I will not lower my character to match their behavior. This kind of strength must be developed. It's not natural. It's not automatic. It comes through practice. You must train your mind to pause before you speak. You must train your spirit to filter emotions before they become outbursts. You must remind yourself every day, I own my emotions. No one else does. You will be tested. People will cut you off in traffic. They will lie about you. They will misjudge you. Some will disrespect you without cause. But these are not obstacles. They are opportunities. Every time someone tries to provoke you, you have a chance to grow. Every offense is an exercise in inner strength. Every irritation is an invitation to rise higher. The more you practice choosing peace, the easier it becomes. You start to notice the triggers before they take over. You start to laugh at things that used to upset you. You start to realize that most things aren't worth your peace. That's when you know you're winning. That's when you know you've taken your power back. So the next time someone tries to make you mad, smile quietly. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough not to go there. Not because you're pretending, but because you've chosen something higher. You've chosen control. You've chosen not to let someone else's immaturity pull you out of your maturity. You were not born to be ruled by anger. You were born to rule it. You were not created to be driven by emotion. You were created to drive your emotions with wisdom and discipline. Anger may knock on your door, but you decide whether it comes in. And the moment you make that decision, you are no longer a victim of what people say or do. You are the master of your soul. And that, my friend, is true power. One of the greatest ways to free yourself from constant frustration, irritation, and unnecessary offense deepen your understanding of people. When you truly understand someone, not just what they do, but why they do it, you disarm their ability to bother you. Offense cannot survive in the presence of genuine understanding. It simply loses its power. People are not as mysterious as they may seem. Every behavior has a root. Every word spoken, harsh or kind, has a source. And when you train yourself to see beneath the surface, you begin to interact with others, not just as personalities, but as stories. Every person you meet is a walking history, a walking wound, a walking fear, a walking victory, a walking disappointment. Their behavior is only the outer shell of much deeper, often unseen realities. Most people do not wake up in the morning with a desire to offend you. They do not plot how to frustrate your day. They are, in many cases, simply acting from a place they themselves don't fully understand. A person raised in a home full of yelling may communicate through aggression because they know. Someone constantly overlooked may be quick to interrupt or dominate conversations, not out of arrogance, but out of a deep fear of being ignored again. A colleague who criticizes others harshly may have grown up only hearing judgment and now speaks what was spoken into them. You see, understanding people means you begin to interpret their actions not just through your lens, but through theirs. And when you see through their lens, the offense often disappears because you realize it was never really about you. Think of how many arguments have erupted, not because of actual malice, but because of misunderstanding. A tone misread, a comment taken personally, a silence interpreted as distant. And yet, if we had paused long enough to ask, why did they say that? What might they be going through? What's happening behind the scenes? We might have seen a completely different picture. When you live with this level of awareness, you gain what some call emotional intelligence. But I call it wisdom. Wisdom doesn't just judge behavior. It seeks causes. Wisdom doesn't rush to accuse. It pauses to understand. And that pause can save relationships. It can prevent unnecessary war. It can keep your heart free from bitterness. Now, I'm not saying you excuse toxic behavior. Understanding someone is not the same as tolerating everything they do. But what I am saying is this: When you understand, you respond rather than react. You deal with people from a place of clarity, not anger. You make decisions with compassion, not confusion. Imagine a person coming at you with anger, insults, or rudeness. The natural instinct is to fire back, to defend yourself, to match the energy. But what if you paused and asked, what's really going on here? Here, maybe they're under intense pressure at home. Maybe they just received bad news. Maybe they're fighting battles you can't see. That doesn't make their behavior right, but it helps you not to internalize it. It's often said, hurt people hurt people. But if you remember that, you can flip the script. Instead of reacting with pain, you can respond with purpose. You can ask, oh, what does this person really need right now? Do they need correction or do they need compassion? That kind of insight is rare, but it's powerful. Understanding also helps you stop trying to change people who are not ready to be changed. It gives you peace with their process. Not everyone will grow at your pace. Not everyone will see things the way you do. And that's okay. Understanding people means accepting them where they are while choosing who you allow close to your heart. This mindset also frees you from taking on emotional burdens that aren't yours. When someone is constantly negative, it's easy to feel drained. But when you understand that their negativity might be a defense mechanism, the way to shield themselves from past disappointments, you stop absorbing it as a personal attack. You start to filter instead of carry. You can say, this is not about me, and move on without losing your... In relationships, whether personal or professional, this level of understanding creates safety. People feel seen. They feel respected. They feel like they don't have to perform. And you, in turn, create an environment where trust can grow, even when there are disagreements. The truth is, people are complex. And once you begin to walk it, no offense will ever be able to stop you again. There are few acts more misunderstood, and yet more powerful than forgiveness. People often treat forgiveness like a gift they are unwilling to give because the other person doesn't deserve it. They hold on to the offense like a trophy of justice, believing that withholding grace somehow punishes the offender. But here's what we rarely say out loud. Forgiveness is not really for them. It's for you. It doesn't set them free. It sets you free. You see, unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. It slowly damages your peace, clouds your perspective, and changes you to a moment you were meant to outgrow. The pain may have been real. The betrayal may have cut deep. The wound might still feel fresh. But the longer you hold on to it, the more it owns you. Forgiveness is not denial. It does not say, it didn't happen. It does not say, it didn't hurt. It says, I will not let this define me. It says, I will not give this moment permission to follow me into my future. Because when you don't forgive, you don't just remember what happened, you relive it over and over. In your mind, in your emotions, in your reactions to others. It becomes a filter tinting every relationship, every decision, every opportunity. You think you've moved on, but the pain still sits in the background, whispering, reminding, accusing. You were not created to carry that kind of weight. Some people live their entire lives bitter, not because of what was done to them, but because they never made peace with it. They never released the debt. They kept the offense alive. And as a result, their joy died. Their trust withered, their hope dimmed. But that does not have to be your story. Forgiveness is freedom. Freedom to feel again, to trust again, to breathe deeply without the shadow of resentment following you. To build new relationships without expecting them to break you like the last one did. It is the breaking of a cycle, the reclaiming of your heart. Now let's be honest. Sometimes the hardest person to forgive is not someone else, but yourself. You remember what you should have done. You replay what you didn't say. You judge yourself by your worst moment. And you keep punishing yourself long after everyone else has moved on. But freedom requires that you forgive yourself too. If you can't extend grace inward, you'll never extend it outward. Forgiveness does not erase consequences. It doesn't mean reconciliation is always possible or even wise. You can forgive someone and still choose not to give them access to your life. Forgiveness is not the same as trust is earned. Forgiveness is given. Trust is about them. Forgiveness is about you. You can let go without going back. And you need to let go, not because they deserve peace, but because you do. You deserve to sleep without anxiety. You deserve to enter new relationships with an open heart. You deserve to build, to lead, to create, to love. free from the emotional baggage of old wounds. Forgiveness creates space for that life. Sometimes we hold on to offenses because we think it gives us control. We think remembering the pain makes us strong. But real strength is not in remembering who. It's in deciding they no longer have power over your emotion. That is the mark of strength. When you can walk past someone who wronged you and feel nothing but peace. Not pride, not rage, just peace. Because you've risen above it. Because you've healed. And healing is not forgetting. It's remembering without pain. It's looking back and saying, yes, that happened, but it doesn't hold me anymore. That's when you know you've forgiven. That's when you know the chain is broken. Sometimes you have to forgive people who will never apologize, who will never admit they were wrong, who still think they were right, and that's okay. Their growth is not your responsibility. Your healing. Waiting for an apology to move forward is like waiting for the weather to be perfect before you leave the house. You'll stay stuck. You'll miss moments. You'll miss life. Forgiveness is the permission you give yourself to be free, to release the weight, to take the lessons without carrying the pain, to walk forward with strength instead of dragging the past behind you. You deserve that kind of freedom. You might say, but they broke me? No. They may have hurt you, but you're still standing. You're still here. You still have breath, strength, and purpose. That means they didn't break you. They only revealed how strong you are. And now that you know, don't waste that strength holding on to bitterness. Use it to forgive. And let me remind you, forgiveness is a process. It doesn't always happen overnight. You may forgive today and feel the anger again tomorrow. That's okay. Just don't quit the process. Keep choosing freedom. Keep choosing peace. Even if your feelings don't align at first, your decision will lead them. Your emotions will eventually catch up with your will. There is power in simply saying, I let it go. Not because it didn't matter, but because you matter more. Because your peace is more important than the pain. Because your future is more important than your past. Because your purpose deserves a heart that's whole, not weighed down by business. And when you forgive, you become untouchable. You become someone who can walk through fire and not smell like smoke. Someone who can rise above betrayal and not lose their integrity. Someone who can be lied on, mistreated, rejected. That is power. That is what makes you unstoppable. So today, choose to forgive, not because they asked, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to live free. Because every second spent carrying resentment is a second stolen from your purpose. Hadith is a treasure, and forgiveness is the key that unlocks it. Don't wait for closure. Create your own. Don't wait for justice to heal. Decide to be whole even if justice never comes. That is forgiveness. If you can master your emotions, you can master your life. It's not your talent that will sustain you. It's not your connections, your intelligence, or even your education. Those things may open doors, but it's your emotional control that determines how long you remain inside. Life will test you. People will provoke you. Seasons will shift on you without notice. If your emotions control you, then everything and everyone else does too. We live in a world where reactions have become the norm. A word spoken out of place can ignite a war. A glance misinterpreted can birth resentment. A social media comment can ruin someone's day. Why? Because people are not ruled by purpose, they're ruled by emotion. But if your emotions lead your life, your future will always be at risk. Feelings are real, but they are not always accurate. They are signals, not commanders. They should inform you, not control you. Mastering over your emotions does not mean you suppress them. It means you understand them. You govern them. You listen without obeying them blindly. Anger is a natural feeling. So is sadness, fear, jealousy, and offense. But just because something is natural doesn't mean it's beneficial when unrestrained. Fire is natural, but when it's uncontained, it destroys. So it is with emotion. When your feelings are undisciplined, they become a fire that burns bridges, opportunities, and relationships. You must become the kind of person who feels deeply, but decides wisely. Don't let momentary emotion dictate permanent decisions. How many people have quit a job in anger only to regret it? How many have ended relationships in frustration only to later realize it was salvageable? How many have spoken words they can't take back, all because they let their feelings speak louder than their principles? Emotional maturity is one of the highest forms of leadership. Not just leadership of others, but leadership of self. Because the person who can't lead themselves through an emotional storm will never lead others through anything meaningful. When life gets hard and emotions rise, you must choose to remain steady. This is where true power lies, not in how much you feel, but in how well you respond. You are not your anger. You are not your frustration. You are not your anxiety. These are passengers on the road of your life, but they should never be behind the wheel. You are the driver. You decide the direction. You decide what gets to stay and what must be left behind. When someone offends you, you have a choice. You can allow that offense to dictate your behavior, or you can pause, breathe, and ask, is this worth my peace? Most of the time it isn't. But that answer is only accessible to those who pause. And pausing is a learned skill. It takes strength to stop and reflect when your emotions are pushing you to react. It takes discipline to hold your tongue when your ego wants to prove a point. It takes wisdom to walk away when your pride wants to win. But let me tell you, every time you choose composure over chaos, you build something unshakable inside yourself. You develop character. You strengthen your spirit. And that becomes the foundation on which great lives. There's nothing more dangerous than someone who is externally successful but internally unstable. They may gain influence quickly, but without emotional mastery, it all crumbles eventually. Success can take you places your character isn't ready to handle. But when you are emotionally mature, you can sustain success. You can withstand criticism. You can navigate betrayal. You can deal with failure and not fall apart. That's the strength you want. And understand this, emotional control is not about being robotic. It's about being wise with what you give your energy to. Not everything requires your response. Not every comment needs your attention. Not every offense deserves your reaction. Sometimes silence is powerful. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not respond. Not because you're weak, but because you value your peace too much to give it away over something small. One of the greatest lies we've believed is that our emotions justify our behavior. But the truth is, maturity means doing what is right even when you don't feel like it. Anyone can be kind when they feel good. Anyone can be patient when things are going well. But character is proven when the emotions scream, react, and you respond with restraint. Ask yourself, who do I become when I'm under pressure? What comes out of me when I'm pushed? That's who you really are. That's what you must master. Because storms don't build your character, they reveal it. It takes work to master your emotions. It means learning your triggers. It means healing wounds that never got attention. It means being honest with yourself about what still hurts. Many people walk around angry, not because of what just happened, but because of something that happened years ago that was never addressed. Unhealed emotions are like landmines. Anyone who steps too close will pay the price for something they never caused. Mastering your emotions requires intentional growth. You must learn to identify what you're feeling and why. You must ask, where is this coming from? What am I believing in this moment? Or is this response coming from fear or truth? When you learn to interrogate your emotions, you learn to lead them. Let me be clear, you are not supposed to live numb. You are supposed to live disciplined. Emotional mastery is not about indifference, it's about alignment. When your feelings are aligned with truth, they are powerful allies. But when they're untethered, they become reckless enemies. You must choose daily to live above the drama, to not be baited into every argument, to not allow your mood to be dictated by someone else's dysfunction. Peace is not passive. And when you guard your peace, you preserve your energy for the things that really matter. Some people will never change how they treat you. But that doesn't matter as much as how you choose to respond. They may be committed to chaos, but you must be committed to control. Not controlling them, but controlling yourself. And when you do that consistently, you'll find something extraordinary happens. Your life begins to rise. Your decisions become clearer. Your relationships healthier. Your influence deeper. Why? Because emotional mastery brings clarity. It brings strength. It brings freedom. You are no longer a victim of every offense or comment or circumstance. You have become the thermostat, not the thermometer. You set the tone. You lead the moment. You own your space. That is what it means to master your life. Not by controlling the world, but by mastering the one thing you can, yourself.